Welcome back to Ken vs. the Stove. Today's episode is the Goetta Strikes Back. As you may recall from last week's episode, the Goetta that I made, well, it was edible, and when it was really warm, just taken out of the frying pan, it tasted okay. But you can go back and see my complaints afterwards about it. But it did get eaten. Here it is in the serving dishes. And here it is being eaten by Laddie and Holly, who really enjoyed it. There's no telling for taste, but not really sure it was all that suitable for human consumption. So we're going back to a much simpler recipe this time, which I got from food.com, and it's a very basic version. And I think that, God willing, this is going to turn out much better than what we came up with before. By the way, I'm filming this on two cameras, my personal cell phone and my camera, and because some of you apparently want to see me. I don't know why. That shows a disturbing lack of taste, but we will, concentrate on the cooking, so let's get to it. Back to the good old-fashioned pot. Okay, now this recipe calls for 8 cups of water to be brought to a boil. So let's start with that. And actually, having read some of the comments that were put online for this recipe, they said it was a little bit too much water, so I'm going to go with 7 cups and see what we get. Now this recipe is different from the way it was done in the last recipe. It wants me to let the water boil before I start adding any of the stuff in. So we're going to go a couple minutes. 8 cups of water, 5-10 minutes before it boils? We'll see. It helps when you actually turn the right burners on, as opposed to the ones at the back, which I have done a fine job of heating up the pan I've got sitting there. Yeah, I know, I haven't got a cast iron skillet yet. If you can see it, I know it's heresy not to have a cast iron skillet, and it's supposed to show up Sunday. And then I'm going to have to cover it in oil and bake it in and all that stuff you're supposed to do with it. But sometime soon, I'll start cooking with that. But for now, the most useful item I've got is this sucker. Okay, so we're back. And we're back with it. And it says now that I am to add, now that it is boiling, to add the steel cut oats. Still got plenty of those left. 2 1/4 cups, just like the other recipe. Next thing we add is 3 teaspoons of salt. And a pinch of pepper. I'm going to interpret a pinch as like a quarter. Ta-da! And we're mixing that with my brand new long-handled wooden spoon. It's all mixed, reduced to simmering level, which I'm going to say is 3. We'll see. And now, by this recipe, we wait 2 hours while this simmers. Please turn into a simmer. Please. See you in 2 hours. Okay, so this has been simmering for 90 minutes now. Now the recipe says 2 hours, but I gotta say, I think it's done. At least partially I think it's done, because when I went to mix it the last time, I had to add some extra water in because there wasn't nothing to simmer anymore. It was all just, you know, oatmeal. Alright, so there's a little bit of liquid in it with it right now. It's pretty much where it's supposed to be, I think. So we're going to add the rest of the ingredients that are supposed to be added right now. 1 onion. 1 onion. Next comes 4 of these stupid bay leaves. They're included in this recipe too. While this one doesn't have all the fancy stuff that the other one did, they clearly want me to use these leaves, which means at some point I have to figure out how to get them out again. Pound of pork. Pound of beef. Went up to 85% lean, or not this time. Can't bring myself to go 90% or above because I just don't like cardboard. And now we mix it all together. You know, I'm having exactly the opposite problem I had with the one I did last time. This time I don't have enough liquid in. I think that that is a result of not using beef broth, which I don't recommend using the beef broth. But I think the water has boiled off a lot easier than the beef broth did. There's not going to be any simmering here, right? There's going to be, this is going to be all about just letting it bake for another hour. Oops. There's a chunk of onion that's a little bit too large. Okay, Now I just have to leave this bake in this pot for an hour. Before we take the next step. And I'll see you in another hour. Okay, so we're back. And this has been in for about an hour. Maybe a little bit less. And we're going to see how well it turned out this time. Whoa! Okay. Time to turn on the anti-fire alarm device. Okay, so I think this is ready to be poured into the thing it's supposed to be poured into. Let's turn off the burner so I don't destroy anything. So any fires or anything stupid like that. See if I can find the leaves. So remember, there are 4 leaves, they've all got to come out. Okay, I gotta question whether these things are necessary. I know they're a pain in the rear to take out after you've used them, but every recipe seems to love them and put them in, so I don't know. Are bay leaves some sort of magical ingredient that I just never known about in my life? Okay, next step, you put them in this stuff. Okay, next thing we do is we put on the wax paper. And I actually this time have honest to God wax paper. Not sure that this is going to do anything different than the aluminum foil did. In fact, I'm halfway convinced the aluminum foil was just as good as this will ever turn out to be. But every recipe says use wax paper. I don't know why it doesn't stick on this thing like aluminum foil did. The interesting thing about figuring out how to cook is like there are like a gazillion types of paper. There's aluminum foil, there's wax paper, there's parchment paper, there's saran wrap. I'm sure there's 8 or 10 others that I don't know about, right? And you just sit there going, why? I'm pretty sure that if I had just stuck with aluminum foil, it would accomplish the mission. But it said wax paper, so I'm going to use wax paper. The only thing I haven't got yet, of all the different types of papers that seem to be the things that they really want you to have, I have not got parchment paper yet. Which, since the next thing I intend to do is probably bake a cake, parchment paper probably is something I ought to have because they seem to like that a lot in cake recipes. Okay, so that's pretty much it. Now we put it in the fridge overnight and we see if this one worked better than the last one. So far, the recipe has worked better, right? I didn't come out with like just porridge when I was done this time. It actually was fairly solid. Now, that would probably be because instead of putting in 8 things of water, I only put 7. I did put back like a 3/4 cup of water because I think at the beginning I boiled too much, right? So I had to adjust for that some. But by the end, it worked out pretty well. We'll see what it's like tomorrow because obviously, as you saw last time, I'm going to have to bring it out, put it in the pan, fry it up, and then test it out. Okay, so we're back, and now we see if the Goetta turned out right this morning. So, first of all, let's start firing up that burner. Okay, so here, folks, this is the wax paper, which ripped, apparently. I'm thinking this stuff is nowhere near as useful as aluminum foil. At least not for this purposes, so if I do this again, I won't be using wax paper. The Goetta this time turned out much more solid. We'll see how that turns out in reality. Something you get in a lot of the recipes in the comments about, oh, I couldn't keep it in the slab that I cut it out of the, out of the tray. I don't know why people obsess on that. Really, Goetta doesn't have to be, kept in the slabs. It could just be, kind of fall apart and still taste really good if done right. We'll say last time, per all the instructions and everything, it was like, oh, you need to fry it for 5 minutes. Yeah, not so much. I think last time I ended up trying it for like well over 10 to get there, and we're going to try it again this time. Okay, pretty much done. Like I said before, don't obsess, which a lot of people seem to do in these recipes and comments on recipes, on keeping it in whatever, however much of it you pulled out as a patty or whatever. That way it goes towards burning, I think, because then you leave one side of it down too long and it will burn and burn black. You should end up with, I don't know how well y'all can see this, some nice browning on it, right? But it should not burn and then flip it over and burn the other side and have the inside of that patty not be done. So just, breaking it up like this works just fine. It tastes the same, just as good. And okay, here we go. And let's taste it. Oh yeah. Oh, that is much better. Much, much better than what I made last time. So, I'm going to go off and eat my breakfast. And I'll have a final commentary later. Bye now. That was good enough. I'm coming back for round 2. And this time, I'm going to try it the way we did when we were a kid. When this is finished, I'm going to take the Caro, we call it, people I know now call it Caro. When I was a kid, we called it Caro, potato. But I'm going to pour Caro over it and eat it the way I did as a kid. So, there'll be about 100 calories from the Goetta and about 5,000 from the Caro I pour over. And then I'll probably spend the rest of the morning recovering from just pouring way too much calories and sugar into my body. Okay, so it tasted, Shady is bound and determined to get away from me. It was all bound and determined to get my attention until I picked her up. And then she's bound and determined to get away from me. Okay, so my cat is attacking my feet right now, basically bumping me hard because I am a food delivery system for the cat. And I have done a terrible job in that I haven't fed the cat since last night, so I must feed it again. So if I fall down because the cat has body checked me, you know what's going on. Anyway, the Goetta turned out good this time. It tasted like I remembered Goetta was supposed to taste. Yeah, it does have a little bit of a fatty taste to it and that, but it wasn't anything like the last time, the absolute fail of last time. The dogs ain't getting this batch, or at least they're not getting a whole lot of it. Unfortunately, because they don't make recipes for one person, they make recipes like you're feeding an army. I do have a lot more than I really need, but I think I'll work my way through it. I gotta say, you saw me eating 2 batches of it. First batch I ate plain, and yeah, it was a little bit greasy feeling, or not, a little bit fatty. Then when I kind of put Caro on it, that cut that, and it tasted really good. You don't have to, I know I joked about it, you don't have to pour globs of Caro all over it, just enough to mix in, and it really improves the flavor. Now that may be because I grew up with it that way. That's how we ate it. It was a breakfast food. We ate it as part of the breakfast food. I've heard other people using ketchup and stuff on it. More power to you. Sounds kind of iffy to me, but go for what works for you. So that's it. And next time, God willing, we're going to try to cook, we're going to try to bake a cake from scratch, and we'll see how that turns out. Until then, ma salama, y'all.